Check 1 2. 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 All right, all right. Mic check 1 2 1 2. All right, let's get it. So check 1 2. Turn this mic up a little bit. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Testing 1 2 3. All right, so we live. We live. Let's do it. Let's get it done. So this is part 2. I decided to do part 2 on my backup channel because it's gonna be hot, and my other channel got strikes. And so since I knew this was gonna be real hot right here, I wanted to put it on this backup channel in case they strike it. This channel has no strikes on it. So we're gonna go over again. So like I said yesterday, the Bible is critical race theory, right? All you hear now is these like politicians, right? Critical race theory, right? That's all you hear now. It's the hottest thing. They're talking about, I don't even know what the fuck critical race theory is. I think what they're saying is if you criticize white people, then that's critical race theory. Like if you criticize, like if if you say, well, George Washington owned slaves and raped children and raped women and pillaged the Indians and stole land, all that's true, but it doesn't sound good. So in their opinion, that's you criticizing, and you make them feel bad. So they don't want that, even though it's true, it doesn't sound good. So when you put it that way, so we don't want you criticizing white people or teaching about that kind of thing that has happened. I think that's what they want to say. But let's just go over some things real quick, right? I think that's what they mean by when they talk about critical race theory at a certain level. I think that's what they mean. But anyway, so Mike looks good. So let's go over. So we got Ron DeSantis on the screen, right? And Ron DeSantis, he had this big thing where he passed the law, et cetera, et cetera. He talked about critical race theory. So we're just gonna go over some of the shit that he talked about, right?
You'll hear these people. It's they made it. It was a big deal in Virginia. These counties, parents were really upset, and a lot of the media would be like, "Oh, it's not happening. It's not happening," and they would basically act like this is all just made up. Well, let me show you some of the things that have been done throughout our country just in the last couple years. The Arizona Department of Education created a quote equity toolkit, claiming that babies show the first sign of racism at 3 months old, and that white children become full racists, quote, strongly biased in favor of whiteness by age 5. Santa Clara County Office of Education denounced the United States as a, quote, parasitic system based on, quote, the invasion of, quote, white male settlers, and encouraged teachers to cash in on kids' inherent empathy in order to recruit them into political activism. And a Philadelphia elementary school forced 5th graders to celebrate black communism and simulated a black power rally to, quote, free Angela Davis from prison.
Boom. I'm going to stop that right there, right? So what did he say? Let's break this down little by little, right? Let's play that again.
The elementary school forced 5th graders to celebrate black
communism
and simulated a black power
rally.
Free Angela Davis.
Okay, boom. So he said black communism. So he's promoting he's trying to promote black people as communists, right? And say that, well, these Negroes are communists. Anything that they're talking about is communism, right? And then he said free Angela Davis. Let's take a look at something real quick. Let's stop there right there. Right? Why the FBI, this is an article, this is from the History Channel, right? So I didn't make this up, right? I didn't write this myself, right? So this is the History Channel. Why the FBI saw Martin Luther King as a communist threat, right? So these people, this is nothing new. What he's saying, this whole thing about black people being communists and then using that as a a talking point to attack African Americans, the descendants of slavery. This is nothing new. That's something you have to understand. This is something that white people like Ron DeSantis have been promoting since they had Martin Luther King killed. Mind you, Ron DeSantis later on, which I'm going to play, he goes on to quote Dr. Martin Luther King. This is the hypocrisy and the insanity of these people, right? He goes on later in this speech he gives to quote Martin Luther King out of context. Martin Luther King was, when he said judge people by the color of their by their character, not the color of their skin, he wasn't talking about white people. He was talking about black people, and then white people like DeSantis take that out of context and apply it to themselves, right? But people like Ron DeSantis always call black people, when they disagree with black people and they want to shut you down and they don't want you talking about what has happened, right? Now, I'm not saying whether I'm just pointing out the truth, the facts. I'm not saying whether I don't even know what the fuck critical race theory really is. I hear so much bullshit. So I'm not really I'm not saying yes, no, whatever. I'm just presenting the facts, right? I'm just going to present the facts as they exist, right? Now, these are just the facts. Now, you can take it for whatever you want, right? You believe whatever you want. But I'm not biased or one way or another. I'm just going to present historical facts. And I'm just going to present the words of Ron DeSantis, right? And people like him that stand up with him with the cowboy hats on and the black people in the background, probably some dark-skinned Cubans, right? So all these people, I'm just going to present their case, right? And I'm just going to present the world as it exists, not as I want it to be. Now, people like Ron DeSantis called Martin Luther King a communist. Why Martin Luther King and the FBI saw Martin Luther King as a communist threat? In early 1962, Attorney General Robert Kennedy approved a request from the FBI to install wiretaps in the home of Martin Luther, a New York-based lawyer named Stanley David Levinson. According to the FBI, Levinson had been an influential member of the Communist Party, blah, blah, blah. They believed he was now wielding influence and an advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King, right? So they started to say King was a communist agent, right? And then they killed him, right? So this is what Ron DeSantis is saying, right? He's presenting black people as communist Russian agents, right? The same thing they did, as you see here in this story, right? The same thing they did to Dr. Martin Luther King, right? From this, right? DeSantis is doing the same thing, right? So he's doing the same thing. It's like the playbook. They're just coming back. They're just using the same playbook over and over and over again. It's not what DeSantis is saying is not anything new, right? When black people complain too much, then they come out and say, like, I don't even know if any of this shit is true. What I do know, what he's saying about black people being, these communist Russian agents is something that they drug up from Dr. Martin Luther King from the 1960s, right? And then he went on to say, let me rewind that again. He goes on to say,
force fifth graders to celebrate black communism and simulated a black power rally to, quote, free Angela Davis from prison. And at that particular...
So he said free Angela Davis from prison, right? I mean, this shit he's saying is insanity. This shows you the insanity of these white supremacist suspects, right? I'm going to go, it's a deep dive, ladies. It's a deep dive, so get your popcorn, right? So Ron DeSantis said that Angela Davis, they want to free Angela Davis from prison. Let's take a look at who Angela Davis is, who he's talking about. Is Angela Davis in prison? Well, nah. Angela Davis is a college professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Here's Angela Davis on your screen. She teaches humanities. She's a professor, right, of humanities in room 430, not a prison. So she's not in prison. I don't think she's ever been in prison. And she's not in prison. She's a college professor. So the question would be, what the fuck is Ron DeSantis talking about? What are these people talking about? What has them in really an uproar, right? What is their beef, as they say, right? As the kids say. What is their real beef, right? They're coming up with these weird talking points about something about critical race theory with cowboy hats on and all this bullshit. Who knows what they're really saying is, I think what they're trying to get at, and it's like veiled language, is don't criticize white people or our history. And we don't want it taught. But that's why Martin Luther King said something, right? He said, I fear I'm integrating my people into a burning house. What did he mean when he said that? Let me bring that up, right? I'm integrating my people into a burning house. Because he knew that people like Ron DeSantis in the end, the same people who called him a communist and had him killed, right? That they were gonna keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? It wasn't gonna be no peace in the end for black people in the United States, right? Where they had been for hundreds of years, right? Through slavery and apartheid, Jim Crow, etc., right? He knew that this was going to happen again. He knew they was going to call black people communists like they called him a communist, right? Like Ron DeSantis in 2021 is calling black people communists, right? And then what was next? They killed Dr. King, right? They called him a communist, right? And labeled him a communist. And then what did they do? They attacked him and they had him killed. White people, right? Had Martin Luther King murdered. They sanctioned his murder. They all supported it. When they say, I had nothing to do with slavery, I had nothing to do with Jim Crow, that's a lie. They all supported it. For the most part, there's only a small minority that didn't want to end segregation and didn't want to end slavery. The laws had to be passed. They've all voted on those things, right? And if you say liberals, well, Robert Kennedy was the one involved with supporting the communist was supporting communism claims against Dr. King. So the Kennedys on the left and the others on the right were all supporting this kind of thing. You can read this article. I posted links, right, of labeling black people communists for complaining about mistreatment in America. This is not something new. The Russian threat, the communism threat against black people that Ron DeSantis, that he's bringing up now. And then he said this woman is in jail, right, or something like that, right, because she's a civil rights activist. So he says, and I believe she may be a socialist, right? So he says, well, this woman is communist, socialist, whatever, and they, boom, boom, boom. He makes up this story about freeing her from jail. She's not in jail, right? She teaches at a college in California. So what the fuck is he talking about, right? You start to see, you know what I mean, that this shit is really is something underneath the surface, right? He's promoting something else, right? With this Stop Woke Act, right? He's promoting something else, right? Through his bullshit, right? And basically what it is they don't want anything. They don't want black people, American descendants of slavery, talking. That's why they bring so many black immigrants in the United States, right? Because they don't have a history here. And that's why they embrace black immigrants, because they don't have a history in the United States. So they're not going to complain. Like Ilhan Omar said, I got no complaints about white people in the United States. I have no problem with them. What happened to black people here is not my problem. I'm quoting Ilhan Omar, right? A Somali immigrant who is now in the House of Representatives, right? So you have to understand that mentality, right, of these people. So let's play some more of this. Let's see. We'll play a little bit more of this.
School, 87% of students fail to achieve basic literacy by graduation. And so this is something that you see all across the country, and we have a responsibility in Florida to say we're not going to do it. So we did do that. So it violates Florida standards to scapegoat someone based on their race, to say that, they're inherently racist, to say that they're an oppressor or oppressed or any of that. And that's good and that's important. But we also have to realize that we got to do more.
So he said it's against the law. They're going to make it against the law to say people was oppressed, right, in Florida. He going to make it against the law to talk about people being oppressed or somebody was oppressing somebody. Let's play it again. I don't want to misconstrue. Let's make sure we get this right.
So it violates Florida standards.
Right, you're going to make it a law.
This is something that you see all across the country, and we have a responsibility in Florida to say we're not going to do it. So we did do that. So it violates Florida standards to scapegoat someone based on their race, to say that, they're inherently racist, to say that they're an oppressor,
to say people are
racist,
racist,
and
or
that's
oppressed.
good, and that's
right.
important.
He says to talk about oppressed people being oppressed, someone being an oppressor. Right. He said, well, you're scapegoating them if you say that. Okay. So let's go back to a point I made in part 1, right, of this. Right. Then you have to ban the Bible. Right. You have to ban the Bible. Why? The Bible talks about oppression. Right. So let's talk about, I'm going to show you, like, this is against what he's saying is against the Bible. Why? Because the Bible talks about oppression. For instance, in the book of Joel, right? Let's take a look at the book of Joel. So in the book of Joel, it says, and they have cast lots for my people, and they have given a boy for a harlot, and they sold a girl for wine that they might drink. What does that mean? So, well, first we have to understand what the book of Joel is. So the book of Joel is a prophecy. It's about 3 pages. It's only 3 pages long. It's a dream in which Joel states that he was given a message in a dream from the Messiah, from the end times in the future. And in that dream, he outlined why he was going to attack the planet Earth and why the Lord of Hosts, right, the Messiah, was going to attack the planet Earth and what he was going to do. So he was going to, and in Joel, he specifically states that he's going to bring an army and he's going to attack the planet Earth. Here are the quotes outlining what he meant. He said, and they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot, meaning you have sold boys for homosexual slaves, and you sold little girls for bottles of wine so you may drink. So you traded in selling people, right? So that's slavery and oppression. And America based on race, right? And so that's one of the reasons why he said the Lord of Hosts, the Messiah, gave him a dream about the future, end times, that he was going to attack the planet Earth, right? With slavery, right, which is oppression, right? When you sell children. So they sold children in the United States of America, right? So that means that he doesn't, this is in the Bible. So under the standard, by Ron DeSantis' logic, the Bible has to be banned because the Bible is critical race theory, right? Based on the book of Joel, the Bible is critical race theory, right? Because it is criticizing a historical wrong of slavery, right? So the Bible technically would be critical race theory. If we go over to Job 3 and 2, it's the same thing, right? Make sure I got that. So in Job 3 and 2, make sure that comes up. It says, I will also gather all nations, and I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel. That's not talking about the state of Israel that was made and founded in 1949 in the state of Palestine. That's an abomination. That's not what that's talking about. It's talking about a heritage, a bloodline of people. None of those people are from the 12 tribes. Or if they are, they might be there accidentally. But generally, people like, for instance, Benjamin Netanyahu, he'll tell you he's from like Ukraine, some fucking where. He's not from his people. His don't descend from the 12 bloodlines. He's a what you would call, they have adopted the religion. They're religious Jews. They're not bloodline Jews. So it says, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Now, when you talk about this, what do you talk? Whom scattered among the nations and parted the land. When you say part, what is he talking about? He's talking about colonization, right? And slavery, right? The transatlantic slave trade and things like that and colonization. Now, how many parts in America? It would be 50 parts. They call that 50 states, right? You have 50 parts, which is 50 states. So that when he says parted the land, so the Bible is critical race theory. You're talking about colonization in the Bible, right? So what Ron DeSantis is saying, basically, you now, if the Bible is critical race theory, under by people like Ron DeSantis and all the white people in the United States, by their definition, the Bible has to be outlawed. They have to outlaw the Bible, or you have to at least censor the parts of the Bible like the Book of Joel, right, and take that out. But generally, the whole Bible says the same thing. So we have to censor the Bible now. We have to do away with the Bible. And if you're doing away with the Bible, what does that mean you are? You work for the Antichrist, right? If the Bible is critical race theory and you have to wipe the Bible and you have to get rid of it, then that means, and they have misrepresented and mistaught the Bible, that means that the Bible is critical race theory. That means you have to get rid of the Bible. That means that you are an agent of the Antichrist if you have to get rid of the Bible and destroy the message of the Bible, right? It says, so if you destroy the prophecy, and the Joel is a prophecy, and you destroy the law, what is the law? They have already destroyed the law. Now they want to destroy the prophecy, right? If it's critical race theory, you have to destroy the prophecy, right? Because the law is, slavery is against the law in the Bible. Colonization is against the law. Also, integration is against the law in the Bible. So that means that you have to outlaw the Bible. That means you work for the Antichrist if you have to do that, right? Let's take a look at another one, right? Matthew. It says, and before him, Matthew 25:32, right? And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divide his sheep from goats. What does that mean? That means that under the Bible, integration is illegal. The Bible is against diversity. The Bible is against integration, right? The Bible and Martin Luther King in the end was against integration. He said, I fear I am integrating my people into a burning house. So the Bible agrees with Martin Luther King. See, Martin Luther King was killed because, well, a couple, different things motivated them to kill Martin Luther King. But then in the end, he went against the Bible, right? Where he said integration, but in the Bible it says no integration. It says do not integrate people, because in the end I'm going to divide them, right? As a shepherd divide his sheep from the goats, right? So that means that the Lord is against integration and diversity programs, right? And it's a reason why. If you think about it, it's not that complicated, right? Why was Martin Luther, the same reason why Martin Luther King was against it in the end before they killed him? Why was Martin Luther King against it? Because he knew what Ron DeSantis was going to do, because what they were doing to him. He knew they were going to call black people, continue to call black people communists, demonize black people, right? And kill them. Like, I think, some trial now for some white woman, some white cop killed some kid, black kid, mulatto kid, whatever, right? George Floyd, et cetera, right? He knew what was going to happen. And so that's why. So what the Bible lines up with Martin Luther King. What doesn't line up with Martin Luther King? What doesn't line up with Martin Luther King? Ron DeSantis what doesn't line up with the Bible? I'm sorry. Ron DeSantis doesn't line up with the Bible. Because the Bible is critical race theory. So you have to get rid of the Bible as well as get rid of all, history related to blacks in the United States. Right? Because the Bible teaches about oppression. It teaches about slavery. It teaches about colonization. Ron DeSantis. And Angela Davis is not in a fucking jail. Where the fuck did y'all get that from? Right? They just probably made it up. None of that shit is probably true. I don't even know what the fuck critical race theory is. But that's probably not even true. I mean, obviously, if she's not in jail, then that's not true. Then somebody made this shit up. Right? Okay, so let's play a little bit more of this.
But we also have to realize that we got to do more to make sure that that actually carries the day in the classrooms and in our society. So today we are going to be introducing to the public, and we have legislators who are going to help us with this, a new piece of legislation for the upcoming legislative session called Stop Wrongs Against Our Kids and Employees Act, the Stop Woke Act. And it's something that...
Stop the woke act. Okay.
And this will do a number of things that are very important. One, it will put into statute the Department of Education's prohibition on CRT in K through 12 schools. No taxpayer dollars.
Right. So he's saying it's against CRT is against the law. So that means the Bible is against the law, right? According to Ron DeSantis, the Bible is against the law because it's a critical race theory according to the logic of Florida citizens and the governor, right? The Bible is critical race theory according to these people because it talks about oppression. It talks about punishment for oppression. It talks about splitting the land into 50 states and that being illegal under the Bible. That's illegal, and the Lord is against colonization. He is against parting people's land and then integrating them, right, under oppressive regimes, right, and then say that we're going to have freedom while you put yourself on top and you put everybody else on the bottom, right, and then have some Hunger Games, NFL, NBA Hunger Games, right? The Lord is not fucking with that. Right, he's not dealing with Ron DeSantis. The Bible not dealing with Ron DeSantis not going to outlaw the Bible, right? Because the Bible is critical race theory. So the prophecies are going to stand, and they're getting ready to come true, right? I think it was a bunch of ships in the sky the other night over New Jersey. I may play a clip of that, right? You see? So the Bible is critical race theory, and they just don't know. I don't know. These people claim to be Christians, right? So the next thing they're going to have to do is ban the Bible or rip out the books that talk about slavery and being and enslavement and punishment for slavery and the punishment and the judgment that's coming, right? For the people. So when you see the Lord, Ron DeSantis, you're going to tell the Lord and the armies of the Lord, you're going to say, listen, He gonna start talking, and you're gonna say, "Hey, listen, be quiet. We don't tolerate no critical race theory around here." That sound like critical race theory. You talking about slavery and colonization and oppression? That sound like critical race theory, sir. Get back in your ships and get these guys off my property. Florida, that's one of 50 states that we parted this land up, 100 years ago, or whatever, right? But the Bible said, listen, right? You parted my land. You scattered my people and parted my land. The Lord gonna say, I'm not with that. And Ron DeSantis gonna say, well, listen, we parted this land, this house, fair and square. We don't want nobody around here with this critical race theory. Sound like we outlawed that in Florida. So get back in your ships. Get these guys out of here with all these futuristic weapons and all this shit y'all got here. Y'all got to get out of here. We don't tolerate that around here. I guess that's what Ron DeSantis is going to say. I'm just assuming, right? Because he don't tolerate critical race theory. And by his definition, as I showed, the Bible would be in Joel, right? Matthew would be critical race theory. Right? And it's in more places. I'm just using that as an example. Right? But let's go. Let's keep going.
Should be used to teach our kids to hate our country or to hate each other.
Right? He said, don't hate the country. All right. He said, we don't want nothing that would teach our kids to hate the country. Well, that means you got to wipe out the Bible. Like I said again, here we go. Joel 3. In the prophecy, he says, you scattered my people among the nations. He said, I'm going to bring you down and I'm going to judge you, Ron DeSantis. Right? And I'm going to plead with you. I'm going to plead with you like black people are pleading with these people now. Right? For reparations and they want to be treated fairly and you want you know what I mean, you want reparations, you want economic equality and all these different things, right? And so he, like black people pleading, he said the Lord of hosts is gonna bring you and judge you and plead with you, right? For the people and for the heritage, his people, who you scattered among nations through transatlantic slavery, right? And through all the different Arabian slavery and the Indian slavery, the Indians in India, and the Arabs in Yemen, and then Iraq, where they took black slaves, right, over the years. And you parted the land, 50 states. Last time I checked, America was 50 states. So the Lord is not dealing with that, Ron DeSantos. You see? So you gotta ban the Bible. Because the Lord not dealing with you, not dealing with colonization.
On CRT in K through 12 schools. No taxpayer dollars should be used to teach our kids to hate our country or to hate each other.
So the question is, do the Lord like colonization? Well, I don't know. Let's go to Job 3. You parted my land. No, the Lord is not with, and that's the Bible. So you got to ban the Bible. You got to ban the Lord if he show up. You got to fight God, the living God himself, right, if he show up. Because he said don't part the land in the 50 states. But you say don't teach that. You saying that if people don't like colonization and they teach about colonization, that's against the law. Well, the Bible is against the law. Job 3 teach against colonization right here. It said no parting of land, meaning you can't go into North America and make 50 different state parts or states. That's against the Bible, Ron DeSantis. I don't know if anybody told you. Just saying.
And that's important, and that's all well and good, but I think what we've seen recently is you can legislate things like Parents' Bill of Rights. You can have certain things, and sometimes the school districts don't always follow it. And so we are going to be including in this legislation giving parents a private right, fortified ability for the State Department of Education.
Let me move forward.
Education, because when you do a lawsuit, you get discovery.
Right, it's against the law.
And ensure that our state standards are being followed, and I think it's something that needs to be done. We also need to understand that this has become a cottage industry, this CRT. There's people making, pay me $50,000 so I can teach your employees how racist capitalism is, or something like that. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, you're certainly charging a king's ransom to do that. You don't complain about capitalism when you're lining your own pocket. It's just when other people are doing well. But the issue is you have these whole cottage industry of these consultants that will come and they'll go into a school district, or they'll go to a business, and they'll go to colleges and universities, and they bring a lot of this into those institutions, and they call it equity. Just understand, when you hear equity used, that is just an ability for people to smuggle in their ideology, because we don't need to have these terms. We have...
Right. See, the Bible talks about equity, though, right? He said, I'm going to plead with you for what you've done. Speaking of equity, right? Of inequity, right? Matter of fact, it specifically says it, right? I believe, let's see, inequity. Let me see if I can find. There are many Bible verses about inequity, right? Here we go. All the Bible verses about inequity, inequality, right? Let's see. So again, he says you smuggling in, you talk about inequality. The Bible has many verses about inequality. Again, that's why I said these people, they have to ban the Bible. That's why they're not Christians, right? What the form of Christianity that they teach, as Alan Watts has said, is a white, racist, fascist, Nazi death cult. Has nothing to do with Christianity. Has nothing to do with the Bible, as you can see. The Bible speaks of inequality all the way through it. Right? What does it say right here? Let's look at Exodus. What does it say? Let's read this. This is very important for Ron DeSantis. Exodus 3:4-7 about iniquity. And he said if you speak about inequality, right, you're smuggling in, communism and stuff like that, right? Exodus 34:7, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the third and to the fourth generation. The inequality of the fathers upon the children, see, and the children's children. That's Ron DeSantis, you see. So Ron DeSantis is prophecy walking. Everything he's saying, it goes right to, look, it's easy. Goes right to the Bible, right out of his mouth. Right? He's showing who, as the Bible says, right? Let me see if I can find that. Right? By your fruit you shall know them. Right? Here we go. Let's bring that up. Right? Bible prophecy. So Ron DeSantis in the critical race theory thing is showing you how close we are to the manifestation of the apocalypse and the final Bible prophecy. Where he says here, you will know by their fruits. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves like Ron DeSantis. You will know them by their fruit. Do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit, right? Like slavery, right? A good tree cannot bear bad fruit. If America was a good tree, it would have never gave you slavery. It would have never gave you Indian genocide. It would have never gave you colonization. America is a bad tree, Ron DeSantis. You see? And he just don't want you to talk about it. But the Bible is talking about it. Right? That's why they had to destroy the Bible. These people work for the Antichrist. Right? Because it's good wisdom. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit, meaning nothing good. And Martin Luther King said that. He said, I fear I've integrated my people into a burning house. What does that mean? Nothing good was going to come out of black people being in America. And that ties in with Matthew, where he says, a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit shall be cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by the fruits you will know them. Amen. See, there's the prophecy right there. There's another prophecy. What is he telling you? Every tree that does not bear good fruit shall be cut down and thrown into a fire. Right? How do we know that's a prophecy? Well, we can jump over to Matthew 25:32, which is a prophecy, right? And what does he say? And before him he shall gather all nations, right? And he shall separate them one from another as a shepherd divides sheep from the goats. And then what's going to happen, right? Here's the fire. Here's the trees and the fire. Isaiah 66:16, more prophecy, more end times prophecy. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. That's the fire, right? That's when you go back here where you say the bad tree, every tree that does not bear fruit and shall be cut down shall be thrown into the fire. Well, that goes to Isaiah 66, where he says, the slain of the Lord shall be many, and by his fire and by his sword shall the Lord he plead with the flesh. Why? Well, that's in Job. You got to go to Job. For slavery, you cast lots for my people, Ron DeSantis, and you said don't talk about it. Right? You are the third and fourth generation who said be quiet, don't talk about the slavery and the Jim Crow and the iniquity. You said don't talk about equality. Right? Wow. I mean, it don't get no plainer than that. I mean, this is Bible prophecy, man, end times prophecy manifest in the flesh with people like with Ron DeSantis. I mean, I'm just kicking out the chair, right? I just could stand here and kick out the chair from him. All the words is coming out of his mouth and out of the Bible, which is the mouth of God. Right? Out of the prophecy, right? out of the holy prophet's mouth and out of Ron DeSantos' wicked mouth, right? They convicting themselves in the last days, in the end times, are close. Kamala Harris she is a harbinger of the end times. Go back and look at some of the videos I've done. That's how close you are. You're so close. It's almost over, right? And so, it many times it tells you the same thing. Now, let's go back. Let's listen to some more of this, and then I'm gonna wrap it up.
Society based on equality, where you're treated equally regardless of your upbringing, regardless of your race. You have the same rights and privileges as anybody else. Equity is used to put the thumb on the scale in favor of their ideology. And so that's where you get things like CRT and a whole host of other things. So our
What other
legislation
things?
will defund any money for K-12 or higher ed going to CRT consultants.
What is a CRT consultant? What is that? I never even heard of
We are
that.
also not going to allow the staff or employees or teachers in our education system to be subjected to to that type of training where they're forced to sit there and listen. And they have had this in different parts of the country. The San Diego Public Schools did a training where they accused white teachers of being colonizers on stolen land and told them, quote, "You are racist," and quote, "You."
Well, let me stop that, right? Are white people colonizers on stolen land? Yes, right? He's saying that's critical race theory, but that is a fact. Is George Washington a colonizer on stolen land? Yes, that's a fact, right? Whether you like it or not, right? George Washington was with his grandchildren and people like that came after him be colonizers on stolen land by default. Yes. So that's not a non-fact. Whether you know what I mean, you don't like the people. Yes, that's true. And again, the Bible is critical race theory. Go back to the Bible. What does it say? You scattered among the nations. You parted the land, Ron DeSantos. That's colonization. So now, yes, again, the Bible is critical race theory, right? Again, we can go to Joel, we can go to Matthew, right? Right? Same thing, slavery and colonization. It's the same thing over and over again. It doesn't stop repeating itself. The Bible doesn't contradict itself. The prophecies don't contradict themselves at all. It's a story and it's chronological and it's in line. It's just that you don't know. You never studied it, right? You're ignorant of the facts. It doesn't change. It doesn't change at any point in the story. And we're at the end of the prophecies now, right? So he's saying that telling white people, I guess he's saying that they are on, is the land in the United States stolen? Yes. Does the Bible talk about that? Yes. Again, the Bible is critical race theory. You parted the land, 50 states. So white people in America would be technically on colonists on stolen land, even their great grandchildren or great great grandchildren would be colonists on stolen land. I mean, that's just a fact. It doesn't sound good. So, and that's what the thing I think they're trying to get at is they want people to stop talking about that. They don't want anybody to ever mention that fact. Well, then you got to burn the Bible because the Bible mentions it.
You are upholding racist ideas, structures, and policies, and they recommended that the teachers undergo, quote, anti-racist therapy. So this is wrong when it's done to our kids, but it's also wrong to force employees to have to go through that. So you are not going to have that in any school in the state of Florida, which is good. But, you know, it's not just in schools, and I know that's been a big focus, and understandably so, because parents send their kids. I think most parents just want them to be educated on the kind of the basics. I don't think that they're interested in this indoctrination. I know I'm not, and I know most of you are not. And it's important. And it is wrong when you're trying to take a kid who's there to learn basics and you're putting ideology and you're trying to indoctrinate. But this also goes beyond education, and it goes beyond just schooling. And it really has become something that is being utilized by corporate America to, I think, create hostile work environments for many of their employees. And you look at what some of these big companies have done in recent years. Bank of America has had training teaching that the United States is a system of, quote, white supremacy, and encourages their employees to become woke at work. Verizon has taught employees that America is fundamentally racist, and they've even promoted defunding the police. And a Google employee program claims that America is, quote, a system of white supremacy, and that all Americans are, quote, raised to be racist. And so that is some of the stuff that we're seeing. And, I think about it, if you're in a company and someone's telling, dirty jokes or doing this, that could be considered a hostile work environment. Well, how is it not a hostile work environment to be attacking people based on their race, or telling them that they're privileged or that they're part of oppressive systems, when all they're doing is showing up to work and trying to earn a living? So we believe that this corporate CRT, it's basically corporate sanctioned racism.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stop there. So he goes on, this is just a clip, this goes on for a while. He goes on to quote Martin Luther King, right? And he says, judging people by the color of their character, that wasn't for white people. He was talking, Martin Luther King was, in the correct context, was talking about black people being judged. But then white people try to take that and act like he was talking about them. He wasn't. Has nothing to do with you, right? Has nothing to do with you. The quote, he goes on to quote Dr. King, and it's horribly, it's a mockery and hypocrisy for white people to quote Dr. Martin Luther King. Let me say that again. It's total mockery and total hypocrisy for any white person to quote Dr. King. Particularly people like Ron DeSantis, right? Who called basically Dr. King a communist and had him put to death, right? And ordered his death. So if you call this man a communist, sanction his death, and then fuck over his people that he was representing, and then you turn around in 2021, do the same thing, call black people communists, right? For talking about, you say, well, if you're talking about that kind of shit, you're a communist and whatnot, right? And then you quote Martin Luther King out of context. What could be more horrible? To mock somebody after having them put to death, and then turn around and say the same shit in 2021. Like as I already showed, what they call Martin Luther King a communist. Say he worked he's a Russian agent, right? My question is, would Ron so let's take a look at something else before I go. So let's look at the Holocaust, right? The Jewish Holocaust. So in the Jewish Holocaust, supposedly these people are, they're just white people, right? But so let's just say, I don't know, they say Semitic as in race, but they're just technically whites. But so it's teaching, so he says any I guess what he's saying, any teaching of the Indian genocide, black people being genocided in the slave trade, Jim Crow, all that is critical race theory, which is the Holocaust. So but he's not saying that against Jewish people. So the question would be why? Why isn't Ron DeSantis against teaching about the Holocaust in American history? Right? That World War II, American soldiers was involved in that, right? And all of that. So, and they teach that in schools. I didn't hear him saying that was critical race theory, which I thought was interesting, right? That he didn't find problem with the Holocaust being, critical race theory. But anything related, I guess, to like Indians, colonization of America, genocide here and the Holocaust here, well, that's critical race theory. But if you say, I guess, if they teach about, if it was some Jewish people talking about the Holocaust in schools, well, we could teach that. He's saying we can teach that. Even though they run apartheid right now in Israel against blacks and Arabs. And if you notice, there's a connection there, right? There's a connection between why Ron DeSantis doesn't have a problem with, and he's not calling, like, teaching about the Jewish Holocaust. He's not calling that critical race theory, and that can be taught, and any references to that can probably be taught and brought up. Sensitivity, any of that, even though they run an apartheid state, and then you wonder why the Israelis and these so-called Jews are over there are their number. They give them $15 billion a year, and they're their number one ally in the Middle East. But they run an apartheid state, according to President Jimmy Carter, not according to me. Let's just be clear. I don't want nobody, oh, we gotta strike your channel. You can't, blah, 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 this, that, and the third, right? They love to strike a channel when you bring these people up, right? According to Jimmy Carter, right? Let's just be clear, not me, not according to me. So I didn't write the New York Times article, and I didn't write the book that Jimmy Carter wrote accusing Israel of having an apartheid system worse than South Africa, and right, that they run against blacks and Arabs right now in 2021, right? But Ron DeSantis doesn't have a problem with any of that being taught in school or with these people, right, that are perpetrating this. They're his ally. Makes sense? Wonder why? You wonder why? Because that's also against the Bible as well. Let's pull up something. Revelations 2 and 9. Let's bring that up real quick before I go. Right? What does it say in Revelations 2 and 9? What does that say? It says, I know the works, tribulation, poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. That's why Jimmy Carter said what he said. It makes sense. It's all ties into the prophecy, right? And that's why Ron DeSantis don't have a problem with them teaching that. He's not going to say anything against those people, against the Ish people, about them teaching whatever they want about the Holocaust in school, right? And any observance of that, any programs related to that, he's not going to say that's critical race theory. We had to ban that from school. But he did direct it at black people, I guess, and Indians, right? When you talk about colonization and slavery and different things in the state, that can't be taught. That's critical race. That part of critical race theory can't be, I guess what he's saying is that can't be taught. But if you want to teach about the Holocaust, that's fine. That's not critical race theory. He's not going to condemn them, even though they run an apartheid state. Why? Because the United States is the apartheid state, right? He said, don't talk about inequity. I'm going to talk about it, right? Right? Let's bring up something real quick before I go. Color Wealth Report. He said, don't talk about inequity, right? So, for instance, this report right here, right, is a Color Wealth Report from Boston. It shows like wealth in the United States, right? And who's at the bottom? Black people, right, are at the bottom on this report, as you can see. White people at the top. So technically, Ron DeSantis would say, now this was made by the Federal Reserve Bank and Duke University. So this is not a CRT group. They would be considered probably right-wing conservative groups. Put out this report, right? These people that put out the report are not CRT. They're Duke University, the New School, and the Federal Reserve Bank, right? They would probably be considered right-wing conservative, just like Ron DeSantis. And so they said, black people worth $8. So he said, but don't talk about inequality, because that's just you trying to get some bullshit agenda and ideology, and it's all bullshit. It's all freedom and democracy and equity in America. That's what Ron DeSantis said, right? But if you look at the truth, it's the farthest thing from the truth. So Ron DeSantis is a liar, because black people are basically under economic apartheid in the United States, even in 2021, even with a fake black president, right, who really was a white supremacist agent, right? I mean, the facts and the stats are adding up against everything that Ron DeSantis is talking about. But he's still talking, right? Which means what? You gotta wait for judgment. See, black people not gonna get no justice, and the Indians, nobody gonna get justice until until the prophecy come true. Why? I'm gonna end on this, right? I think I covered everything, right? I'm gonna end on that, right? Because Isaiah 66 is the end times prophecy, right? And this is why they're gonna have to. They really pseudo banned the Bible. They really banned the Bible the way that they teach it. But in Isaiah 66 says what? For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with our flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many because of colonization, as it mentioned in Joel 3, right? And slavery and colonization, as mentioned in Joel 3 and 2, and slavery. Again, the same thing over and over, right? And also, one thing I want to add, integration is against the Bible. And because of the Lord in his wisdom knew that these people were going to do what they did, and they weren't going to stop until he came and stopped them. That Ron DeSantis is not going to stop. None of these people that you see with him, they're not going to stop until he stops them, right? Barack Obama ain't going to stop him, right? Martin Luther King, who they called the communist and killed a Russian agent, and he's not obviously not going to stop him. He's dead. Malcolm X is dead. They killed Malcolm X. They just released that. The same people that killed, these people, right? Killed Malcolm X. Nobody gonna stop them until the Lord come, as he said in Isaiah 66, right? He don't, because the Lord don't believe in they're gonna say that the Lord is critical. He pushing critical race theory, and he gonna laugh at you, right? And he gonna bathe this whole place in fire. That's what the lake of fire is in the Bible, right? Let me bring up a story that came out the other day, right? UFOs over New Jersey. Right, let's bring up something real quick. UFOs. I'm gonna end on this. WBZ News Radio. UFOs fill the New Jersey sky as shocked onlookers filmed them. Right? This was a story a couple days ago, December the 18th, right? There's a video. I may post a link. Let me see. Maybe it's a little bit of it here, right? Let me see. Maybe I'll play a little bit of it. UFOs fill the New Jersey sky. There's a reason why. Because there's a base under New Jersey, right? Mysterious flying white circles over New Jersey spark controversy, right? The Lord has a controversy of the inhabitants of Babylon, right? Let's see if we can play a little bit. I might play a little bit of this.
Lights over Paterson, New Jersey on Monday night caused a bit of a stir with residents on the ground, all trying to make sense of the unidentified flying objects. Louis Stevens, who was on the ground filming the spectacle, says he lost count of what he called flying white circles that he says morphed into different shapes.
You see it on YouTube and you be like, it's always somewhere out in the Nevada desert somewhere. The shock was more like, is this really real? Like, are we really looking at what we think we're looking at? Headed toward those.
The mysterious lights dazzled the skies over downtown Paterson for more than 5 minutes, Stevens said, ending their run over nearby Garrett Mountain. Pix 11 News sent the video to the Federal Aviation Administration, where an official reviewed it, checking in with local air traffic. We were told nothing unusual was reported. While theories on the ground are now running rampant, especially after a government report released over the summer acknowledged that intelligence officials cannot explain such sophisticated movements in the skies, one likely premise leans more toward drones.
At first, I was kind of puzzled.
Victor Chu, the founder, director, and executive producer of Skytech One, a drone-based photography company behind numerous award-winning productions, says based on his knowledge, it appears the flying objects were part of a drone lighting show practice session that went wrong.
If you look at a light show, they're all synced together and they're controlled by a computer.
So my man said they drones, right? But if you go back in the report, everything ain't a drone. right? And so the time is getting short, and they ain't drone. He said they was drones, but that was his opinion, right? And so we know what the end of this is going to be, right? Or the end was given in the beginning, right? The end is right here, right? So and so well, I guess to say that black people are going to get justice in the end, and you're not going to see Ron DeSantis can shut it down, but in the end, he's not going to be able to shut it down. They can shut down King, right? But in the end, he said, I'm gonna separate you all, and then I'm gonna punish y'all for what you done. Simple as that, right? And it ain't me saying it. That's just the prophecy speaking through me. I'm just showing you the prophecy. I'm showing Ron DeSantis is speaking on his own words. I'm not speaking my words. I'm just showing you the stories, and I'm just showing you what it looks like, the way that it looks like it's going to roll out. Now you make up your own, just like I have to make up my own mind about the facts. You have to make up your own mind about the facts, right? Everybody has to look at things and they have to put it all together and come up with their own conclusion. That's all I'm doing. I'm just presenting it, and I'm just saying. In the end, I'm saying what it looks like to me, based on what I see, and what I see is I think that these prophecies are going to play out. I think because of what you see with Martin Luther King, what he said, right? What's going on, it all makes sense. The Bible prophecy, it all makes sense, right? And segregation was better for black people. And the Bible proves that. Martin Luther King proves that, right? That black people should have never integrated with white people and other groups. It was a mistake. Integration was one of the worst mistakes. That's why Martin Luther King realized he had made a mistake. It was a bad idea for black people to integrate with people that don't like you, right? Because only thing gonna happen is you're gonna end up at the bottom, and they're gonna mock you, right? They're gonna mock you, call you a communist Russian agent, right? And somebody gonna get killed, right? That's it, right? And you're gonna be a loser. You're gonna be a loser in America, right? That's all gonna happen. You feel me? So that's why the Bible said in the end, he said, I'm gonna separate them, right? So which you should have stayed separate, where they could be teaching critical, you could teach whatever you want. See, so if you separate, you have your own land, your own schools, you could teach whatever you want, Ron DeSantis. Or black people over here, or whatever, or Angela Davis and her class at UC with the black people, right? And Ron DeSantis could take all his people and he could teach them whatever he want to teach them, and it wouldn't be a problem. Because we don't live in the same place. We live in our country or our states, and you live in your states. Y'all teach that foolishness over there, and we teach the truth over here, right? And nobody wouldn't be complaining. But when you mixed everybody together, number one, it was against the Bible. And number two, it just created a bunch of problems for people that can never be solved, right? America doesn't, like they said, why? Right? A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Right? Ron DeSantis and his people can't bear no good fruit, according to the Bible. This is them bad fruit, right? The Bible condemns them. That's why they work for the Antichrist, and they are basically everything they say is contradicts in the Bible. That's why they hypocrites. The Bible says a hypocrite is a godless person, right? So Ron DeSantis is a hypocrite, right? Him and everybody like him, based on the Bible. Not based because I said it, just based on what the Bible says, right? It says that a bad tree can't bear good fruit. What does that mean? If you look at and that's why they got to cover up the history, because if you look at history, you see the bad tree and the bad fruit. But if you burn the tree down, then or whatever, you whitewash everything, then you don't see, then like the Bible says, you don't see the bad tree or the bad fruit. It just looks like there's a tree that popped up and it's, you know, everything's good, right? It's a psyop, it's a game, right? But you can't play games with God, Ron DeSantis. That's the problem. Your time, you're a short time on the planet, and you can't play games with God, right? Obviously, you can't hide the prophecy, right? You can't wipe out history. They want to wipe history. They want to wipe the prophecies, right? And you can't. Why? Because in the end, you're gonna be separated, and you're gonna be judged for what you've done, right? Somebody has to be judged for parting the land, right? As it says in Matthew and in Joel. Somebody got to be judged. When if the Lord come, right, and he say he hop out the ships, right, and he say, I didn't leave this, I didn't want this like this. This is against the law. Who did this? Who chopped this up into 50, like for instance the United States? They're very arrogant and they're very bold right now, right? Because you don't have to be held accountable. You can say, listen, I don't want to talk about that. I want that covered up. But when the time comes and somebody jump out some ships with an army and say, who parted the land? Who did this? Point them out. Step up. The people that did this, the people who own up to this is your stuff. I want you to step forward. Who gonna step forward and say, I'm accountable for this? I parted the land. This is my 50 states. This is my country, whatever. I'm repping for the 50 states. I'm repping for the people that did this. Who step up? Who is accountable for this? So that means Ron Sanders got to be accountable at that point. He says, I'm the governor of one of these 50 states. That's right. My ancestors, we did this. Right? Here's my army. Here's my guns. What you going to do about it? See, then you got to be held accountable, but not by black people talking about that like Martin Luther King, that you could just call them a communist and shoot them in their face. That's easy. A bunch of dusty Negroes without no resources running around in the ghettos. You could just pass a law and say, well, we don't want nobody criticizing, white, racist activity and colonization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody cares about them, obviously. You can pass a law against them and just shut that down, right? You can shoot Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. You can go get some sellout coons like Obama to try to cover it up. That's easy. But when somebody jump out, when you got 400,000 super soldiers that then just liquidated part of the planet and then jump out and say, hey, listen, step up. Who's the people that did this? Who's the people that parted this land into 50 parts? Where are they at? Where are their children? Where are their friends? Where are their families? Right? Who's responsible for this? Please step forward. Who speaks for them? Well, Ron DeSantis, you gotta step up. See, then you gotta step up again, but you can't step up with the Stop Woke Act. Right? You gotta step up and say, yeah. I passed the law, Stop Woke Act. I'm responsible. You gotta poke your chest out. And you have to take full accountability at that time. And you're not going to be dealing with Martin Luther King no more. There won't be anybody that you can shoot in the face and call a communist, Russian agent, right? There won't be nobody like trying to take money from you like Obama or some other coon Negro, right? There won't be none of them left. They'll just be the person spoke of in Matthew 25 and 32. You shall be gathered. And he's going to separate you, Ron DeSantis, and everybody like you. Right? Like it says. You shall be divided. And then you had to be accountable for what you did. Right? To somebody else, not Martin Luther King, not nobody like that. Right? The question is then what do you do? See, so you have to hope that none of that. That's why I'm saying like these people don't believe in the Bible. There's no way they could believe in the Bible because the Bible is against them. Right? The Bible is against people like Ron DeSantis. And you had to understand. So and if you don't understand it, you don't understand that. So when you see like Trump with a Bible or Ron DeSantis with a Bible or any people in the church, you have to understand that's blasphemy. That's pure blasphemy. That doesn't make sense. That's only logical to stupid people who've never read the Bible, who don't understand prophecies, who don't understand history, right? You can talk down to them about the Stop Woke Act and how you passed in the law about CRT and, etc. So you can, all this foolishness, you can get away with it, right? But then when the time you come in, this is what the end times is about, right? When you come to the end times and it's all over with, and now you gotta, this is the biblical end times and the apocalypse and the revealing, right? Now you have to be accountable. All y'all had to be accountable, right? For what y'all have done. And you can't pass the Stop Woke Act. You gotta try to fight back, I guess, against the Lord of Hosts. You gotta try to fight back, right? So then the question is, how does that go for you? The prophecy say it don't go well, right? That he don't accept no surrender. So the prophecy already told you that's not gonna go well. So anyway, but I guess until then, you gotta do you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta get your CRT signs. You got the little children back there. Hopefully, when the time comes, they have their CRT signs. And all the rest of that, and they show it to the Lord of Hosts, right? When he say, listen, who's the people that did this, right? When he in the process of separating everybody, like it says in Matthew 25, who's the people that did step up? So all the people with their CRT T-shirts, I guess they can have a protest and like, hey, we don't want none of this CRT stuff with you guys. We don't know where y'all came from. Y'all gotta get the hell out of here. Because the Bible is critical race theory. Right? And the Lord ain't dealing with no integration and diversity. He's not dealing with no colonization and no slavery. Right? He gonna judge this place. Right? And it's not no getting away. Right? It's not no getting away based on the scriptures, based on the prophecies. That's what it says. There's no getting away from this one, right? That's why they can't catch the UFOs, right? They go back. They said,
look at the video, you'll
right?
see that their main.
Let's see, where's the ones they show? I'm gonna show these, then I'm gonna leave.
The mysterious lights
Right?
dazzled the skies over downtown Patterson for more than 5 minutes, Stevens said. And officials can
Right?
not explain
These right here. They can't explain these. Not the ones they explain away as drones. The one they can explain. Right?
sophisticated movements in the skies. One like
Right? The ones they can explain that the military has been watching for years and years. Right? When they get here, then you have to be accountable. Right? When they stop the ship, when they stop just looking around and watching y'all, and then this happens. See, that's when this happens. That's connected to Matthew, when the ship stopped, because they're just watching you now, right? They're just watching you do speeches about critical. They got the internet. If they got ships that can fly that you can't catch, obviously they got the internet. Obviously they're watching you. Obviously they can tap all your TV stations. They're watching your speeches on CRT, Stop Woke Act laws. They're watching you, bomb Libya, bomb, Iraq. They're watching you bomb, start shitting Ukraine. They're watching you, you know what I mean? They like everything that's going on. George Floyd protest. They're watching all this shit. Just watching. Right? Taking notes. They already know what's going on, right? Ron DeSantis and the rest of them, they already know, right? Why? Because the beginning was written in the end. So then they're just going to pass judgment. Isaiah 66. Now it's time for judgment. It's judgment day is coming, right? Because the Bible is critical race theory, right? And he says in Isaiah, he says, by fire and by fire and by his sword will the Lord of hosts plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. Why? Because these ships are quite powerful. They can launch blue-green lasers. I saw it in a dream. They're gonna launch blue-green lasers and just wipe out huge. I mean, that shit is gonna light shit up and wipe out huge swaths of the planet all at one time. Like whole states gonna be just disappear, be gone. All of this shit, everything disintegrated. I mean, that's what's going. I saw it in a dream, right? They're going, and so that's what he means by when you see Isaiah 66, and he says, "For by fire," right? That's those blue-green lasers, and that's his sword, right? He said, "The Lord shall plead with you," right? And the slain of the Lord shall be many, right? That's what that's talking about. It's talking about the blue-green lasers hitting the planet from the ships, right? And you know what I mean? And it talks about the process of him separating the people, right? Because you got all kinds of hybrid alien clones, all kinds of shit going on here. So he has to separate the people back to the original bloodlines. That's in the book of Revelations, as well as Matthew 25. See, so integration and all that shit is against the Bible. That's why, like that's why Martin Luther King said what he said. You can't get justice here. It's not gonna work. None of this is gonna work. This was written in the Bible. So, but anyway, I think I covered everything. So on that, that's all I got. See you on the next one.